Want to talk to Lucas, who's calling in from Texas. Lucas, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on, Lucas? Just talking with
Hello?
Megan, having a good time.
That's what's up. Hey, I had one specific thing I called in for, but after listening to y'all, I have one question I'd like to ask Megan. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
If Megan's all right with it, then go ahead.
Absolutely.
It's not like a bad question or anything. I'm worried about like your concept of hell. Do you believe in hell?
No, I do not.
Okay, I guess a follow-up question, do you believe people live after they die?
I actually don't know. And I find that quite distressing and quite scary. I have no idea.
You're way different from my family.
Yeah, I don't know. The hell stuff was always freaky to me. That was definitely a real thing for me in Christianity. But then also looking at, we've talked about this before, the actual historical data that we have on people talking about hell, which again is always just written by people who have never actually been there themselves. It seems to be a nebulous concept at best.
Right. All right. Well, that's the only question I had. I was just curious about that. But I guess to get to what I actually called about, I've called the show a couple times in the past month and a half. And I'm the guy who has a family of preachers. My oldest brother, he's a preacher in the southeast side of America. And I had a conversation with him earlier this week. And the conversation ended the way our conversations always end. So every time I talk to him about our differences with the religion, and it comes to like, why does he believe in a God and why do I not believe in a God? He'll always give me like 3 or 4 answers of why he believes. And then after I give my arguments against those, it ends up with him coming to his survival from cancer. My brother is a cancer survivor. So he always comes back to, I survived cancer, and that could not have happened without God. That's every single conversation. That's what it always comes down to. And when he brings that up, I kind of just end the conversation as quick as I can, because I don't want to be an asshole. I don't want to say something. Yeah, I mean, because that's a deeply personal thing. He could have died from that. So I don't want to be rude or come off as being mean by trying to arguing against his that he survived cancer.
You don't want to be wrong, but but we do acknowledge, like, factually he is wrong, and we know that because there are atheists that survive cancer. Like there are people who have no concept of God who have had cancer and who have survived. There have been people before Christianity was around that have had cancer and have survived it. I mean, like, we can demonstrate a lot of this. I'm not sure how you demonstrate ancient people having cancer. I'm sure they figured that out somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised if they do some sort of analysis on, I don't know, bone density or something. I'm not paid to talk about that. I'm just here to talk about other stuff. But anyway, yeah, like I think, I mean, if I was having that conversation and I really wanted to be, respectful of that, I would ask, well, what do you think about people who believe differently, who have survived cancer? Like, would it be fair for a Muslim person to say that Allah, well, maybe they might go, at that point they might say, oh yes, well, because God can work in different people. But what about people who have different God concepts or even no God concepts at all that do religious ritual, and you can take your pick and found healing through that? Is that enough evidence to, come to the conclusion that it's because of this event that the cancer was healed? I mean, we make these mistakes all the time, and history is rife with medical anecdotes. I mean, they're like, medicine as a whole is just a series of like doing a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't work until we find stuff that does work, and like keeping up cultural beliefs of stuff that doesn't work because we've been doing it for a long time. Like And cancer, unfortunately, is one of those things where we're probably going to keep having it for a long time, and people are going to make big attributions to it because it is a very harsh time and very, it make people very emotionally vulnerable. And it makes me mad that people like do get this like, holy water that they found off of some late night television evangelist program and make the claim that, oh, it's because of this that they were healed. Because it's just not true. So yeah, I don't know if I'm actually helping here, but I guess I would just go the gentle questioning route of, well, what can we look at other examples and can we make the same kinds of claims? Because, medical health is a big thing to talk about. Like, I think it's reasonable, but I don't know. Megan, what do you think?
Yeah, I haven't really done that too much. I mean, I've responded one time. I didn't respond to it this last week, but I've responded one time talking about how, okay, God's going to help him survive cancer, but yet God lets 30,000+ children die of starvation every day. And he literally said to me, well, God's got a different plan for everybody. That's like almost the exact words of what he said. And I didn't know how to respond to that. But
I think that's the problem with this kind of argument. I feel like that's the problem with this kind of argument is that you see this, and I'm sorry, I keep going back to like YouTube Christians because it's like the most contact I have with this kind of argumentation. But then it doesn't really matter what kind of argument you bring up. There's always like a sidestep and then you just kind of keep going forward. And the whole like God works in mysterious ways really does work for literally anything that you want to bring up to these people.
Anything.
Yeah.
If the problem of evil stopped people from being Christians, we would have stopped having Christians like way long ago.
Exactly.
Like way long ago, because like Christianity itself is built into this idea that there are people that suffer, and like and again, this is open to multiple interpretations, but there is an interpretation that says that, it's because of sin. It is because of human beings doing wrong. And so we have to make atonements for that. And that's why you absolutely need this religion, and that is, in my opinion, a terrible thing. That's like one of the worst things you can do to a human person, to tell them that they are worthless.
It's your own fault.
And that it's your own fault, and that your physical maladies are the result of something you did or your prior generations did, which is something that a lot of ancient peoples believed. And you don't see that as much today now. It was definitely a thing that was prevalent back in the day. So yeah, like it's frustrating because it puts your brain in a place that, I don't know, doesn't make a lot of logical sense, doesn't really match up with reality. But like you're right, Megan, you put it perfectly. It's a sidestep. It was a sidestep for me, and it's also a result of privilege in some ways too. When you realize, like, oh, you're in,
It's really easy to make that kind of argument when you are coming from a place of privilege, and when, like Lucas's brother, when you have survived something traumatic, it's much easier to say, "Oh, I survived because God singled me out for whatever reason." Whereas the people who were living,
Megan, do you believe that that's possible, that it was God?
I mean, I don't know. I find it unlikely. And then the problem with that argument, oh, God saved me, is that, okay, if he saved you, then he condemned many, many, many others to death.
Yeah.
Because if he is able to cure you specifically from cancer, then he's able to cure other people from cancer, and for some reason chose not to. And the like grand plan thing, I've never found it a terribly convincing argument, because how does this one person's death somehow serve to, like, how does it serve to further God's purpose? Josh and I lost a child last year, and to use that argument to say, oh, well, it's God's plan, he's in a better place, that's bullshit. I don't see how condemning a 36-week child to death is somehow going to make the world a better place in God's eyes.
Yeah. When I was deconstructing my own faith,
I feel really bad now.
Oh no, please don't. Sorry. Please don't.
I just feel bad that I asked about that because I didn't know about your child.
Oh no. It's absolutely fine. It's a tragedy, but it's life.
Yeah, at least like when yeah, like I said, when I was deconstructing as a Christian, like I was turning to the book of Job because that's what people were telling me to look at when we were talking about this kind of problem of evil, because it didn't make much sense to me either. And if you're not familiar with the book of Job, it's this book where this character Job is basically, well, no, it actually starts off with God literally making a bet with Satan. That is not exaggeration. That is what it is. Saying that, Job would, God expects Job to be this loyal follower, and Satan says, no, he won't. It's the Satan. It's actually not maybe the character Satan that we often think about in popular media, but that's for Megan to correct, people on. That's not for me. So anyway, the story goes on. And Job is crestfallen because all these things are happening to him. He's losing family members. He has these physical maladies and stuff. And there's these long conversations with him and his friends. Honestly, a lot of the book you can skip. But there's an important part at the end there, which is Job literally having a conversation with God. And God is kind of saying, the morality to this tale is this is happening because I said so. And you should just accept it. And there is no, because there's this grand plan. There is no, like it's literally happening because he's making a bet.
Yeah.
Like that's why it's happening. And
might makes right.
Yeah, like it is. It's a might makes right.
Might makes right.
Yeah, it's a might makes right kind of argument here. And like I think that's how a lot of Christians understand Christianity. I think that's how they make this justification in their heads. Like, I don't know why this is happening, but God is right, and he's always right. And we just have to accept it for the way that it is. And unfortunately, people use this in discrimination of other people too. There's a lot of people I know who would not say the nasty, horrible things about LGBT people, or would at least get out of other people's business when it comes to that stuff. But they feel like they have to because the book says so. And God is right all the time, so we have to follow it. And like this happens in a lot of multiple systemic ways. That's the one that immediately comes to example. But it's a terrible mindset to have. It's an awful mindset, and it's one of the reasons why I talk about it on here. Because man, that's a bad thing to have. It's a bad thing to have. So anyway, Lucas, we've been going on some tangents here. Have we been helpful for your situation at all?
You have, and I don't want to take up too much of your time because I've called a couple times in the past month, but I guess I just want to put it down to this, and you can go ahead and let me go after I ask this question, and y'all can answer while I'm off the air.
Okay.
I just wanted to call to see what you would do if you were in my shoes. Like, I'm the only atheist in a family where 3 of my siblings are preachers. My dad's a preacher. I've been trying to reach out to my sister. I don't know what's going on with that yet. I mean,
yeah,
maybe
I have a brief question of clarification before you go, Lucas. Is your end goal to begin the deconversion process with your family, or is it just to find a way to relate to them that is comfortable for everyone?
Neither.
Okay.
Neither. My goal is I want to know what is true. And as far as I'm convinced of, I feel the way that I was raised is not true. And so that's why I want to talk with my family, because I think that they believe something that is not true. But if it is true, I want to know about it. But from my conviction, I think it's not true.
Yeah.
But like, I guess the main reason I called was for that conversation with my brother. Like, every time I talk to him, it comes down to he's a cancer survivor, and there's no answer for that except for God.
Yeah.
And I always just kind of stop after that. I'm trying to keep the peace with my family. I'm wondering, is there a way to respond without coming across as being insulting or, being antagonizing? Like,
here's the thing. Here's what I think about this,
like
Lucas. because your brother's a preacher, correct? Like, he is already talking his truth to other people publicly. You know, like I can't imagine that, you know, he would have, it would be unexpected for someone of his position to come across someone who doesn't, you know, believe what he has to say. Like, I'm sure maybe it's not a thing that happens every day because they probably talk to people who believe with what they do, but like that should be something that he should expect if he's going to talk about it in the way that he does, and talk about these truths. You know, like I hope that Christians call in and want to talk to me about the stuff again, like while I'm on air, maybe not bothering me in my own time, but like your family members with him. And this is a belief that you grew up with as well with him. I think you have a right to talk to him about this stuff.
If I could get him to call into the show, I would.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
I've told him, I haven't told him about this show yet, but I told him about Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience, and I've told him to call in, and he just told me that there's no point in calling in because basically he believes that he believes and nobody is ever going to change his mind. And earlier this week when I was talking to him, he said something to me that sounded so close-minded that I told him, what you're saying sounds like you're just being closed-minded.
Well, that's the thing. This is my point, Lucas. This is my point, right?
Closed-minded.
Yeah, here's my point. You know, maybe this cancer belief is something that he can personally affix to, and maybe that's not going to, you know, change much. But if he's out there talking about, you know, discrimination towards other people, if he's talking about something that's going to affect the lives of you, me, and everybody else that watches this show, probably, like that matters. That absolutely matters. And I think you would have a right to talk to him about it. But like, those lines are often hard to draw, especially with family, because like I have family that doesn't like that I talk about this stuff. And to be honest, I don't like it when they talk to me about this stuff because I know that those conversations don't go anywhere. But my situation is kind of different in that, you know, I am also publicly facing. If it's a one-on-one personal conversation with a family member that you can trust, that you can have that conversation with, and it's going to affect your relationship with them regardless, because it sounds like it already is, then yeah, I think that conversation is necessary, because it sounds like you know, your relationship with them is going to be affected by, you know, whatever activities they're involved with.
You can't think of a way to have the conversation.
It just starts with gentle questioning. Gentle questioning. You know, that's really all it is. Just like, hey, like I've been thinking about what you said, and I kind of have some doubts. I'm not sure if I believe what you're saying. Maybe talk this through with me so that it makes sense with me. I think that's the best way you can do it. It's, you know, you can't go up to and say you're wrong for X, Y, and Z, because studies have shown that's not how you change people's minds. If you're in a situation where you think changing somebody's mind is the best option, or at least Lucas, having a conversation about it, then you gotta play it slow and go for the long game here, because chances are he's not going to change his mind based off of one conversation, but maybe a couple down the line, and maybe he could become a Christian, assuming that he is, or
we've lost Dan.
Become a Christian,
whatever it is you're interested in. Because right now, I don't know. It sounds like it's a pretty tense relationship.
No, it's actually not tense. Me and him have a good relationship, but when we do have these conversations, it gets pretty heated. And I try to cut the conversation short before it gets too heated. And it just seems like every conversation he brings up is cancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, I got told that I was lost for a second on the show here, but that's all we have time for this conversation anyway. But Lucas, thanks so much for calling in. Appreciate your call, and I hope I was helpful. Yeah, hope we could help in some way. But we talk about that a lot on this show. This, like, what the boundaries are, and like when is it a good idea to talk to somebody? When do we have the right to talk to people about their beliefs? And I'm open about this. I struggle with this. I don't know all the time. I do know that if it is going to cause active harm, I will speak out if I can, if I'm in a safe place to do so. But I don't know what, like, do you have any hard lines for yourself, Megan, for this stuff?
I don't, and part of that is because I don't really see other people very much.
Sure.
part of it for me is, am I going to achieve anything other than hurt feelings or upsets? Because there are some people in my life that I know they believe very differently to me. I do not agree with those beliefs, but I lack the skill base to kind of not necessarily talk them round, but I'm not going to change their minds.
Yeah.
And talking about specific topics, unless I absolutely have to, is going to do nothing but cause interpersonal conflict. Having said that, if you're telling my kids stuff, if you are making them feel uncomfortable or belittling them in any way, then you and I are going to have a conversation. And it will be along the lines of, I understand you feel differently to me. That's fine. This is an inappropriate thing to say to a child. Please stop. But it's tricky because I don't have these kinds of conversations.
If someone had their, if they said that I believe that God healed my cancer and that was the end of it, I probably wouldn't touch it. I probably wouldn't touch it. But if that same God belief informed, for example, we need to teach young earth creationism in schools, and we need to do this because God is real, and I know God is real because he healed my cancer, well, then maybe I might look at that, right? Like maybe there's something there to kind of parse. But yeah, like it's difficult because I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy that shuts people down. But at the same time, like
there are some things where there are some places where it's appropriate. And
yeah.
I think maybe in that instance, that's an interesting one. I think I may go the route of, like you were suggesting earlier, well, God also cures cancer in the Islamic population and the Hindu population. Does that mean we should also be teaching Islam and Hindu religious practices in our American schools? And I strongly suspect the answer will be, oh, hell no.
Right.
Well, see, there you go. Just because it's your religion doesn't mean that it should be imposed on children in an educational setting. Yeah.
It's always tough, like, because I do believe there's times for conflict, and you have to have those conversations. But
I'm a horrible conflict avoider.
It's one of those things. Awful. I think a lot of people don't want to get into it, but I don't know. Like I still stand by this idea that there is a time and a place. There is a time and a place. I may not be able to tell you when there's a time and place, but there is a time and a place.
It's necessary sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.